the greatest self-realized person. I know that I've done my best to put in all the Krishna consciousness I could manage in the course of my life. That gives so much satisfaction and so much meaning. Brahmatirtha Prabhu talks about going to the funeral of a friend, gentleman who died in his early 40s, very sad thing, young family. So that all his friends and co-workers gathered for the memorial service. Brahmatirtha said, one person after the next got up to eulogize the departed, and they all said the same thing. He's such a great fan of the Gators. The summary of his whole life, all they could come up with is he's such a great fan of the Gators. So for us, we want to be remembered as great fans of the Gators. We want to be remembered as devotees who successfully navigated their lives through all the uncertainties and all the difficulties. We just kept chanting, we kept serving, and we kept doing our best to fill up our lives with Krishna consciousness. This is something that academic studies of Krishna consciousness can never really accomplish. Mayaya Prita Jnana in the Bhagavad Gita. People are very intelligent. They have great intelligence, but that intelligence is misdirected due to a poor fund of knowledge, due to not understanding how the whole spiritual science works. It's not rocket science. It's really not that difficult. And people have so little interest. And so for us as devotees, we're trying to take shelter of the process. We're trying to take advantage of it. It's definitely swimming upstream in a materialistic society. We're not going to get recognition. We're not going to get appreciation. We're not going to be recognized as something, contributing something useful in society for the most part. We're not going to become wealthy. We're not going to become popular. It is said that when people see a devotee coming, they see death personified. Because they see, oh, here's somebody committed to spiritual life. What if they're right and I'm wrong? What if my materialistic pursuits are not really what it's all about? Oh, I don't want to look. I don't want to talk. Across the street, we walk on the other side of the street.
Drive by quick.
Drive quick.
Don't go to the Bank of Yamuna.
Yes, right. That's right. If you want to hold on to your material life, don't go down to the Bank of the Yamuna and see that little blue boy playing the flute. Because if you do, you'll never want to come back. If only it was just that easy, as she should what he thought. It just takes the patience to persist. That's all. It's the patience to persist, and slowly, the taste, the habit, if nothing else, the habit develops. The habit develops, and from that habit comes a taste where we don't feel complete. We don't feel satisfied if we haven't properly heard and chanted on that particular day. So, there's some thoughts about these questions by Maharaj Parisha. We haven't gotten to the questions, we're just glorifying Bhagavatam. So, some other comments? Sir, microphone handy for Adeshan.
For the class, I had a quick comment and question. The quick comment was related to the Gators. We had this lady at the food bank, her name was Kathy, and she passed away. She was really nice to us. Every time we would come in, she would say, Ishkon. But she would give a lot of bhoga for us service. So when she passed away, we would go to the wake and give respect and do something. So I remember we went there and she was covered with a flag of Gators. And I thought, oh my God, it was just so sad. It was just like, the body's dead, they're covered with Gators. It's just such a crazy, it's unthinkable. And the questions I had is, we were reading about devotees who welcome in trouble. Well, I can't relate to that, just for everybody else, but the question is, what kind of quality does it take to do that? And how do we get there?
To welcome trouble.
Yeah.
Like Kunti. In Kunti, he said, yes. Yes, please send these difficulties again and again. here's the thing, in the first canto, there's a beautiful verse about how happiness will come uninvited, just as troubles come uninvited. It's said that the amount of happiness we have destined in our life can be seen on the palms of our hands at birth.
That's it.
And then Prabhupada said, if you still have lines on your palms, you have not clapped enough in kirtan. The point is we're entitled to a certain amount of happiness and distress in this life. And if we are tuned into the happiness that comes from Krishna Katha, Tushanti Cha, Ramanti Cha, we're tuned into that happiness. The ups and downs of material life become more like little bumps on a bumpy road. Because we know where we're going, as opposed to becoming huge roadblocks where we have to stop everything and try to deal with them. It is amazing to me, honestly, after 50 years in Krishna consciousness, plus it is incredible how Krishna just, the hits keep on coming. Yeah, it is. There is never a point where you say, okay, now everything's cool in the material world. and it's cruising along and the rug is pulled out. But what's happened to me over time is I just have my expectations have lowered. That I no longer feel like I'm entitled to happiness in this material world. And therefore, when unhappiness occurs, I think, okay, this is good for my spiritual life. This is definitely going to make me more detached. It isn't the same as Queen Kunti welcoming them or saying, as soon as I see troubles, I see Krishna. There's still a pain in the neck. They're heartbreaking. They're still exasperating, and you wish they wouldn't happen. But there's just a bit of resignation that this material world was never meant for me to be happy. The younger we are, the more expectations we have that I'm entitled to a happy life in this world. And the older we get, the more we realize that there really is no happiness that's going to last in this world. My wife and I had a business to feed our ISKCON habit of we buy a house, live there for a while, and then it would go up in value and we'd sell it. We'd have to get started at this at a good time in Florida when houses were cheap. So we always had this running joke that each time we move into a new house, say, okay, we're gonna live here forever. And then, okay, time to sell it and the next one. So it's very much like a material body. You get it, I'm gonna be happy forever, and then you have to give it up. So I hope that helps. Yeah, the pain doesn't go away, it just becomes more like, what do you expect? Gopi, and then Govinda.
Thank you, Guru. Thank you so much for the class. One thing that came up in my mind when you were speaking, you mentioned at certain points throughout the class that, of course, this kind of knowledge, it's not an academic thing. It's not quite the same category. It's a different kind of knowledge that is really about the heart and what's going on in the heart and the transformations in the heart. However, we are sitting in this context, we all have some residue of our life before Krishna consciousness. And from that life, we're bringing this kind of an attachment to intellectual prowess. And what then sometimes happens is in our community of devotees, I think there's more respect given to those devotees who are so eloquent and so philosophical. And sometimes there's not a ripe environment for just everyone to feel they want to share their realizations in their heart. So this is something I wanted to share and that I'm thinking about. That we have to be careful to make sure everyone feels inspired and comfortable to just engage in Krishna Katha. And it doesn't matter if we're not all equally eloquent.
Thank you, Nate. I just share this brief story. I know some of you heard this, but I love this story. The devotee named Jayananda Prabhu, who was the only disciple of Srila Prabhupada that he canonized, recognized as a saint. He was unable to remember, I won't go the whole story. He was unable to remember the Gayatri mantra. he was a very deep and sincere devotee, but as far as Sanskrit knowledge, he liked to go and fix cars. He had an engineering degree from Ohio State University, but his nature was very simple. So he was not a jnani by any stretch, an intellectual. So he came to Srila Prabhupada for a refresher, trying to remember the 7 lines of the Gayatri mantra, the 7 Sanskrit mantras. And Prabhupada spent half an hour with him going over the first one, and then he smiled and said, "It is hopeless." But because you are sincere, whatever you say, Krishna will accept. So Jayananda was known for having the fastest Gayatri in the West. Everyone else would sit down and take about 5 minutes, 30 seconds, he'd be up. Back in the circuit.
On the topic of mitigating miseries, when I was in Vrindavan, I stayed at the hospital, and I had a Rajbasi doctor, and I asked the doctor because I was curious, how do you deal with miseries? How do you, when your mind gives you problems, what do you do? And he said, he said 2 things. So one, he goes to Yamuna and sits somewhere, in a disclosed place and just goes to the Yamuna. And he said, what's even better than that, he goes to the Ghat where they burn the bodies. And he said, when he goes there, all his problems go away. And I was thinking, how powerful would that be if in the West, we had that. You could just go and see that,
Really?
literally, and all the problems would go away.
Yes, this is, if I may just share, we're at 8:30?
Yeah, they're gonna break for some.
They'll just bring it in with the hook. Okay, good. On one of my first trips to India, we were going on a little boat pilgrimage up the Ganga in Mayapur. And on the other side of the Ganga was a burning ghat. And we were sailing along, having this blissful kirtan, rocking the boat. And I looked up, and there's the ghat wala, the burning ghat wala, the manager. Scruffy older man with a beard, and lived in a little hut next to where all the bodies are burned. It's his job, I guess, to accumulate the wood and manage everything. So as we're sailing along, and he comes out of his little hut, sees us, he starts going, "Haribo!" There is something known as Smarshana Vairagya, that is the renunciation of the burning ghat. So when people go and see a body being burned, they go away very sober. It's a very sobering thing because the big pile of wood is prepared as a pyre, the body is put on it ceremonially, and the elder son, the nearest relative, lights the fire. And then everybody just stands and watches as the flames consume the body. And when the head is burning, it makes a loud pop like a firecracker. And everybody's just seeing this loved one. What is the actual position of this material body? So people go home in a very sober mood, like your friend. But unfortunately, it doesn't last.
I really appreciate what Gopi has to say. And it's interesting that the Bhagavatam itself emphasizes just the simplicity of hearing, simply opening up the heart and mind and allowing the sound vibration of itself is spoken of as like a sun shining in the darkness of Kali, and that every syllable pours down a flood of prema. And anyway, it's so simple that you don't have to be have any intellectual prowess. You just have to simply open up the heart and mind and hear in the company of devotees. And I also wanted to say that I read every day on Zoom, twice in the afternoon, Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the evening, Krishna book. So anybody who's interested, there's no commitment necessary. You can come and go at your leisure and just hear.
Thank you. A word from our sponsor. It's very nice to have that option available. Thank you for doing that. All right, are we ready for slide?
We'll come to this, I guess.
Okay, when it comes, it comes. All right, yes, Kartikeya.
Yeah, you said in class that when you have some taste or habit, it is a sign of advancement. My question is, sometimes here it does feel that way. There's a habit, or maybe there might be a little taste, and then we go home for the holiday, and that habit is gone. It's like, okay, like waking up early, done. Waking up at 11 or 10, going to bed early, gone. And just like, I find myself like reaching out to the men's ashram group chat, like, will somebody please help me chant because it's 10 o'clock and I have 16 rounds.
And this is our ashram leader. Thank you for that. Has anyone else experienced this? Oh. Yes, we feel like we're very advanced, and then when we are not around the supportive association of devotees, our real degree of taste comes out. I was speaking with one of our Krishna House graduates just the other day who was in that situation, and he had to go to another city and work in a place where he was going to be by himself most of the time, but he's very determined to keep chanting the 16 rounds. And it had been difficult for him. I'll just leave it at that. It's difficult. So the idea is to develop good habits in the association of devotees, and then recognize where we're really at when we lose that association. And so it does come to a point where our habits will be so deeply ingrained that we'll manage to rest early and rise early and chant every day, even when we're not around devotees. That does happen, but it takes some time. And the measure of our purification can be very easily seen in that regard. When like who we really are is demonstrated when there's no one around to watch us. See? But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that we are inadequate because we get strength from the association of devotees. And the fact that we're putting ourselves in that position, again, is we're being eligible for Krishna's mercy. It takes Krishna's mercy to get in the habit of chanting and rising and just completely packing our bags to go back to Gandhi. I'm just going to do everything I have to do in this material world so that when that moment of death comes, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I have no more vested interest. I have nothing to stay for. So the more we feel like that, the easier it will be to maintain our practices. But don't be discouraged. Discouraged, guilt, that's the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance does not promote spiritual advancement. So it rather is driven by a taste that I like this habit. This habit's good for me. I really feel good when I do this. I feel better when I keep my hours. I keep my regulation. I always tell people when I would visit my mother before she passed away, I said, okay, Mom, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm yours. 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. that's my time. Don't ask me to stay up late. Don't ask me to do anything early. That's my time. 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm yours. So that helped me navigate. Of course, she was almost 100 years old, so she didn't have that many demands. Okay, anything else? Only men commenting this morning, no comments from the others? Okay, Drew. I guess thoughts going to come whenever. People are starving. People are struggling here. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you for this class, and I'm appreciating the comments and questions as well. That's been helpful for me personally. Something that I'd like to hear from you about is a comment that was made some time ago, which has stuck with me, and I think I've felt discouraged after hearing it. And there was like pain arising for me. Because I think the message was something like, if you think Krishna is talking to you, then like you're like in a illusion. And I guess I experienced discouragement with that because like when I'm feeling trouble, that's what I want to turn to.
You want to
Like,
turn to Krishna?
yeah, like in my consciousness, I find that that's how I want to connect, is like through talking and like through like an internal prayer of like,
Right.
man, like what am I to do here? You know, like how can I serve you? How can you guide me? Yeah, so like, but at the same time, like I've heard other things where like Queen Kunti prays and all these other things. So I'm like a little confused. Is it just like you have to become qualified? How do you become qualified if you don't try?
Right.
Like I just
No, it's very important to talk to Krishna. Absolutely. Yeah, we need to talk to Krishna. I believe this statement may be implying something a little different. That if we feel we have a direct connection with Krishna, and Krishna's telling me what to do, then we need to verify that from other sources. Right?
Yeah.
This is why, as Krishna says in the 11th canto, the one who claims to be my devotee is not my devotee. The one who claims to be the devotee of my devotee is actually my devotee. So to connect with Krishna, we need to have the verification of the devotee. Somebody who is already connected to Krishna. Then we can validate what we feel Krishna is telling us. Because our receptors are not so well tuned that we can be absolutely sure Krishna is speaking. I think this is what the devotee is saying. Go ahead.
Might a difference be like,
Could you use the mic?
yes. Might the difference be someone saying like, well, Krishna told me or guided me to do A, versus like an approach of like, well, I really would like to serve Krishna and I chose to do A in hopes that that was of service.
Right.
Or something, like, can you help me to make a distinction in that,
Yeah.
like with an example?
It's a simple thing. I feel like Krishna wants me to do A.
Yeah.
So therefore, let me ask my mentor. I'm feeling that Krishna is guiding me this way. What do you think? See, that's the that's the inclination to just cut out any connection, any intermediary between us and God, and that's where trouble begins. God is telling me to do this, like in Israel, right? The one side is saying, well, God is telling us to wipe out the Jews, and the other side is saying, well, God is telling us to wipe out the Hamas. So, you know, which side? And God is perplexed. Prabhupada said. So this is what happens when there's no spiritual science, and the science requires a spiritual master. Okay. So yeah, we all have the right to talk to Krishna. We just need to validate our receptors and make sure that we're getting the right message. Okay. All right. For Sadhana or not, I'm stopping. All right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Govinde Namo Radhi Vaishnave Swalpamya Raja Sripashanaya Pajayate. Fortunate persons without faith, Mahaprasad, the spiritual enthusiasm of the Lord, in the deity of Sri Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the transcendental Krishna Nam, and the Vaishnavas.